Picture this, right now, tonight. Someone pulls you out of bed and drops you into a real Ice Age winter. No phone, no store, no jacket waiting in the closet. Just open, frozen ground in every direction, a wind that doesn't stop, and a sky already going dark on you. Just you and the cold. Here's the uncomfortable part before we even get to skills. Your body isn't built any differently than theirs was. No thicker skin. No extra layer of fat that evolved specifically for this. No internal setting that switches on and makes freezing air feel normal. Cold adaptation like that doesn't happen inside one lifetime, and it never did. It takes far longer than that to show up in a population, and even then, it usually shows up in a handful of specific traits, not a full switch to comfortable in the cold. Your hands go numb at the same temperature theirs did. Your core temperature starts to slide at the same point theirs did. So if an actual Ice Age human and you swapped places, stripped down to bare biology, you'd be running the exact same hardware they were, which means the question is whether you still have what they had on top of it. Surviving that cold ran on 5 things, stacked together: fire, clothing, shelter, food storage, and people who actually knew how to do all of it. Lose any one of those, and the body underneath barely matters. All 5 had to hold it once, every single day, not just on the days it felt urgent. So let's actually test you against each one, the way it would have played out in real conditions, not the version where you've had time to prepare, read a guide first, or pack a bag. Just you, right now, against each system in order. Start with fire, because everything else depends on it. Could you start one right now, with nothing but what's around you? No lighter, no matches, just wood, stone, and whatever you can find. Be honest. Most people alive today have genuinely never done this, not struggled through it once and given up, never attempted it at all. Here's what the attempt actually looks like. A bow drill needs a spindle spinning fast enough and steady enough to build up a small coal of hot dust at the base of a fireboard. That takes real pressure, real speed, and a rhythm most people burn through their arms trying to find on the first try. Before any of that, you'd need to find genuinely dry tinder in a landscape covered in snow, which is its own separate problem most people never even get to. Damp wood won't hold a coal at all. Wind steals the heat off it before it ever catches. Even people who've practiced this dozens of times sometimes walk away with blistered palms and a pile of sawdust instead of a flame. And say you actually get one going. That's only the start of the test, not the end of it. Keeping a fire alive through a full winter night means someone stays awake to feed it, hour after hour, because a fire left alone for too long burns down to nothing while you sleep. Miss that watch once, in the wrong week, and you wake up to embers instead of warmth. And this isn't a small gap to close. Once skin is exposed to real freezing wind chill, frostbite can start setting in within about 30 minutes, sometimes faster depending on the wind. Hypothermia doesn't wait for some dramatic, obviously freezing moment either. It can begin creeping in well before most people would think to worry about it. And if you're wet on top of cold, water pulls heat out of a body roughly 25 times faster than air alone does. That's the clock you're on, and most people would spend a meaningful chunk of it just failing to get a spark, then failing again, while the temperature kept doing what it does. Next, clothing. Not buying a coat, making one, from raw hide, with nothing but a blade and thread, cut and shaped to actually seal in heat instead of just draping over you. Before you even get to sewing, there's the hide itself. Fresh hide has to be scraped clean of fat and tissue, worked and stretched over days, sometimes soaked and worked again, before it's soft enough to wear against skin instead of stiff enough to crack standing up. Thread has to come from somewhere too, usually sinew, pulled and split by hand into strands thin enough to pass through a needle eye smaller than a grain of rice. Could you do that? Could you even do a rough version of that? The honest answer for almost everyone is no. It's a skill nobody's hands have ever practiced. Plain and simple. And a torn seam midwinter with no way to fix it turns into a real exposure risk fast. Hands and feet lose heat faster than anywhere else on the body, and they're the hardest parts to keep properly covered while you're still working with them, still gathering wood, still tending the fire that's keeping everyone alive. Wrapped, layered footwear takes just as much sewing skill as the rest of the outfit. And it's the piece most people forget to even think about until their feet are already numb. Shelter's next, and here the test gets even more physical. Could you build something that actually blocks wind and holds warmth, using only what's lying around? No hardware store, no pre-cut lumber, no screws. Most people could stack a few branches into something that looks like shelter from a distance. Very few could build something that would actually keep them alive through a full, freezing night. Real cold weather shelter needs layers, not just walls. A windbreak on the side the wind actually comes from. Enough packed material above and below to trap dead air, instead of letting it flow straight through. And a thick base layer between your body and the frozen ground, because the ground pulls heat out of you just as fast as the air does, sometimes faster. A footprint small enough that body heat alone can make a real difference inside it. Building all of that takes hours of gathering material before a single piece goes into place, in the same cold that's already working against you the whole time you're building it, with daylight running out faster than the work does. Then food, and this one hits differently, because it's not just about hunting. Say you actually catch something, with whatever crude weapon you manage to put together, after however many failed attempts came before it. Now what? No fridge, no freezer. Meat spoils fast, and a single kill has to somehow last you through weeks you haven't lived through yet. Drying it correctly takes days of tending, turning it, protecting it from moisture, and from animals that want it as badly as you do. Get the process wrong, and instead of food that lasts the winter, you've got food that makes you sick, the 1 week you can least afford to be sick. Storing fat properly, rationing it out without knowing exactly how long the season ahead really is, telling which plants nearby are food and which ones will put you on the ground. Most people today have never preserved a single piece of food without a plug and a compressor doing the work for them. And most people today couldn't tell a safe route from a dangerous one without looking it up first, let alone bring down an animal without a rifle doing most of the work. And here's the piece that actually ties the other 4 together. None of the first 4 things survive without the 5th. Ice Age humans weren't figuring any of this out fresh, every single time, from nothing. They were taught, watched an adult do it, then did it themselves, badly at first, then less badly, over years, inside a group that had already been doing it for generations before they were even born. A toolmaker spending years learning to strike a blade to a useful edge without slicing their own hand open. A hide worker who knew exactly how long to soak a skin by feel, not by any written measurement. That knowledge lived in hands and in memory, passed person to person, because there was nowhere else for it to live. Lose the one person in the group who actually knew how a certain trap worked, or which frozen root was safe to eat, and that knowledge didn't come back. Somebody had to relearn it from nothing, if they got the chance to relearn it at all. That's the part modern life quietly removed. The information is still out there. You could look up how to start a fire with a bow drill in about 10 seconds on a phone, but watching a video and actually doing it, cold hands, real wind, first real attempt, with your actual survival riding on whether it works, are 2 completely different experiences. One is knowing. The other is a skill your body has practiced enough times that it doesn't fall apart the moment it's the only thing standing between you and freezing. So where does that actually leave you? There's some good news buried in here too, worth saying clearly. You'd have something they didn't. An entire species worth of accumulated knowledge sitting one search away, and a small number of people alive right now who still practice these exact skills for real, teaching bushcraft and primitive fire making and hide tanning to anyone willing to put in the hours. If you found one of them fast enough, your odds would jump considerably. A weekend of hands-on practice with someone who already knows the motion is worth more than 100 videos watched alone on a couch. Even just picking one skill, fire, and actually practicing it outside until it works without luck, would put you ahead of almost everyone who's never tried, but dropped in alone on night 1 with nothing. Genuinely alone. Your body would be exactly as capable as an Ice Age human's. Your hands almost certainly would not be. They outlasted that cold because someone taught them how to make fire without a spark from a lighter, how to turn a dead animal into a coat that actually works, how to build something out of nothing that keeps wind off a sleeping body, how to make food last through a season with no fridge anywhere in sight, and how to pass every one of those skills on to the next person before their own hands stopped working. You're carrying the same body they were. The real gap is everything a few generations of convenience quietly let slip out of everyone's hands. The calluses, the muscle memory, the 1,000 small failures it takes before any of these skills actually work when it counts. On the one night it actually matters, with no one coming to check on you until spring. More of these are coming. On the small, human questions, history books usually skip. Subscribe so the next one finds you.